Welcome to the Church in the Wild podcast. You'll be hearing the words from worship from Sunday, September 21st, 2025, where we continue on the wild path and discuss action. If you want to learn more about Church in the Wild and all of our upcoming events and programs, just go to churchinthewild.org. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Barb. And in looking for a nature connection this week to go along with the message of taking action, I ended up somehow with the total opposite message of my nature connection today. But I was reading about the big improvement in global air quality during the COVID pandemic, and groups that are acting to try and keep the old levels of pollution from returning, especially in parts of Asia, because they really closed down and they had horrible air quality problems prior to COVID. And there was a part in the article that stood out to me about the pandemic causing the world to shut down and to take a rest. And the rest in industry and transportation and other polluting activities, it allowed the earth to actually breathe again. And people, again, especially in Asia, saw blue sky in places that hadn't seen it in years. Certain birds were returning that they hadn't seen in years. People with respiratory issues got to go outside and got some relief from suffering every time they went outside. And so I started thinking about this rest thing. And I'm not saying we should all just rest instead of acting to try and bring about social justice and change. But everywhere in nature, especially now, we see that rest is necessary for sustaining life and sustaining the energy that we need to carry on and take action. Taking action requires energy. So if you know me, I am definitely no Bible scholar, but I believe that even the Bible talks about resting and leaving fields fallow every 7 years so that the land can rest, and that people should rest on the seventh day. Yep. So with tomorrow being the first day of fall, we see all around us the preparation for the big rest of winter that's going on. Winter forces nature to take a rest. It doesn't give it a chance to make a choice up here. So most organisms wouldn't be able to survive the cold weather and the lack of sunlight if they had to use high levels of energy to stay active and stay warm. The leaves are falling so that the trees can rest from the work of photosynthesis and conserve energy in the process so that they'll be ready to get back to work again next spring. The grass, thankfully for me, because I don't have to mow as much, but the grass has slowed its growth in preparation for resting dormant over the winter. Birds that were busy singing to attract mates and bustling around to build nests are mostly quiet now. Animals, I'm getting back to the black bear from last week. Animals like the black bear that I talked about last week, they're packing on the pounds, getting ready for their long rest. They may eat up to 20,000 calories a day during this period. Yeah. I know. Except trying to find those 20,000 calories. Yes. They could put on 1.5 times their summer weight. And the foods that they normally would just eat, berries and things, whatever they find, aren't as high in calories as birdseed. So birdseed is really high in calories, and they know that. And that's why this time of year especially, they might be rating your bird feeders more than normal. Because also, apparently dry dog food, but I don't know how many people have dry dog food outside, but if they get their hands on dry dog food, that is another huge calorie input for them.
My dog eats and then barks in the yard.
Oh, yeah, that's true. The second time through is okay. Yeah.
A little pre-digested.
Yeah, it makes it easier to get, yeah. And those bears will be entering their dens, by November, and bears don't actually hibernate as deeply as some mammals do. There's like a discussion on whether they're true hibernators or not. Their metabolic rate goes way down, but their body temperature doesn't go quite down as low as like other mammals do. And they can also be woken really quickly, just immediately, basically. And that's a good thing because pregnant bears give birth while they're hibernating. Yeah, usually around February. And they do wake for that. If you've ever given birth, you would expect that they wake for that process. And to nurse, when the cubs need to nurse, they wake for that. But other than that, the mother and the cubs, it's kind of nice. They just stay curled up together and rest until March or April when they come back out to go back to the work of finding the food that they need. Most seeds won't sprout in the spring without a winter rest and the cracking of their coats from the freezing and thawing that the winter weather brings. And in an unusually warm winter, where the activity might start early or start and stop throughout the winter, usually plants will end up having a short burst of flowering in that case, but they won't have the energy to sustain them through the whole growing season because they didn't get their rest. So I remember last winter, Corey talked about the need to kind of hibernate. That was a theme, right? I remember, and to restore ourselves during winter. And we've still got time before winter takes over, but maybe we should all take a note from nature and start preparing ourselves for some productive rest. So start thinking about ways we can use our energy strategically, like the animals do, to conserve what we have and still be able to take action without depleting all of our resources.
Thank you so much for that component of action. It really is. Just like death is a part of life, rest is a part of the concept of action. And we have to practice rest. And I heard recently, right? Yeah, I heard recently that trees, the wood of a tree becomes strongest in fall when it stops feeding its leaves. Like it gets denser in the fall, the trunk of the tree, and kind of readies to harden through the winter. And I was like, yeah, we're stronger when we rest. Amazing.
Okay.
All right, we've got our poem.
I'm Dolly, and this is a Franciscan blessing. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and turn their pain to joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children and the poor.
My name is Cheryl, and I'm reading Wisdom from the Christian Scriptures from the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 43 to 46. And this is from the Message paraphrase. You're familiar with the old written law, love your friend, and its unwritten companion, hate your enemy. I'm challenging that. I'm telling you to love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the supple moves of prayer, for then you are working out of your true selves, your God-created selves. This is what God does. He gives his best, the sun to warm and the rain to nourish, to everyone, regardless, the good and bad, the nice and the nasty. If all you do is love the lovable, do you expect a bonus? Anybody can do that. If you simply say hello to those who greet you, do you expect a medal? Walking the wild path can get tough. May we always let love lead the way.
That wild path. We've been talking this month. How do we get on this path? How do we walk a life of faith as a wild church? What does that mean? And I think of it more really as how do we live fully human, fully present in our humanness? How do we live an enchanted life, connected to all creation and our Creator? How do we live from the soul instead of from the mind or the body? How do we let our soul lead? And so we're using these 4 words that the group of us who got Church in the Wild off the ground and started, when we were asked to develop a official discipleship pathway, what does that look like for us? We thought, okay. Well, we thought not so much as like, here are the steps you must take, but here are some paths you might be wanting or feeling called to walk. And here are ways up the mountain of God that we can walk together. We thought of these as 4 verbs, actions to guide our spiritual lives, our practices and rituals. So those words are connect, honor, act, and embody. So we started this month seeking connection. When people come to Wild Church, or if they're wanting to live a more soulful life, wanting to find connection in that. We know humans are pack animals. We are not soul lone wolves. And the reality is we are intricately and intimately connected to all life and to the giver of all life. We're all made from the same stuff and come from the same source. The Buddhists like to say we inter-are. There's no way to be separate. There is no individual. We are all one. And so with that as the reality, seeking connection or nurturing connection is more about bringing our awareness to that reality and living with greater understanding, trying to live and move around with this idea that I'm the same as every other thing is kind of a trippy experience. Like you really have to work at it and find ways of helping bring that connection more to your life. So we started with that and talked about some great ideas. And if you missed it, you can go back and listen to the podcast. But then last week we moved on to honor. And we talked about the definition of honor is to regard with respect and fulfill an obligation or keep an agreement. It also means to bow in salute to your partner in square dancing. That's an honor when you pause and give attention and recognition of your dancing partner. So we thought about, okay, in the great square dance of life, how do we honor and acknowledge our partners in life, every other living thing, the spirit? How do we show respect and attention to all that we are connected to? And that, showing attention, respect, opening our awareness to pay attention more, that is the beginning of how we fulfill our obligation, right? That's the beginning of how we honor each other in that respect. Fulfilling our obligation to our Creator and our fellow earthlings. The first step is that recognition, that bringing attention and having good intentions for all that we meet. The real fullness of honor, though, comes in our word this week, which is action, to act. I'm sure we all have heard, faith without works is dead. Who is that, Luther?
Paul?
No, Peter.
Paul, Peter. Comes straight from Scripture, I guess. Yeah. James. One of those. Peter, Paul, and James. Probably all said it at some point. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you believe stuff but don't live those beliefs, it's pointless, right? Beliefs without action is useless, and I think maybe dangerous sometimes, right? I know, and I can tell you, and probably you can relate. I have felt the frustration of going to a church service, sitting through all the talking, and getting up and leaving and saying, okay, what was the point of that? What are we doing? What are we going to go do now after this hour of my life? You know, like, what's the difference? And that's why we have our community, our monthly actions as a group. And that's why we have free laundry night and we do creative reuse, and we are trying to live differently throughout the weeks and months, not just show up here once a week to feel good. It's about actually doing something. And I love Pope Francis, right? You pray for the hungry, he said, then you feed them. Amen. That is how prayer works. I love that last part. Actually, that's how prayer works. You pray it and then you go do it. I also love, I think he was like some kind of political reporter, P.J. O'Rourke. Was he a reporter? Yes. My memory. Well, he said, he is attributed to this quote, I feel like I've heard a bunch. Everybody wants to save the world, but nobody wants to help mom do the dishes. Right? We all have these great ideals of how things should be, but you gotta show up and do the work. Last year, we did a whole month on how to be the change we wish to see in the world, right? Because that's such a great sentiment. Be the change. Well, how? How do we do that? And yes, the first step we identified was starting with yourself, right? That's all you can really control anyway. Start with yourself. But what we quickly moved on to is you can't spend your life on the meditation cushion. You know, you can't spend your life praying for everybody and not doing anything. There's still hungry people out there. We can do the inner work and that helps, but that's just the first step. We have to act. Action is required in a life of faith or living our values or whatever you like to call what you're doing here. And so we thought about this, and this stuff is all on our website too, under the We Believe section. So you can refer back to it. We thought, okay, people showing up, feeling called to act. What might that look like? Well, people coming saying, I feel a need to act in ways that heal and restore myself and the world. So acting for me and others, right immediate. People might say, I need guidance in how to act with greater wisdom and courage. I need support of a community in that work. And others might be ready to say, with love and support, I feel ready to lead others as we act together in ways that honor our connections, values, and beliefs. So these are the things we hope or imagine people might be coming in with when they are feeling called to act. And these are the ways we want to help be that community, the support. Be the followers if somebody's ready to lead, or to encourage and educate and lift up people who are coming in
eager but unsure. So there's this desire, but then there's always but what do we do? How do we act? And for me, having been raised in Christianity, whenever I consider this question, right, what would Jesus do? Even now, as I have wandered a wild path and visited many other traditions, I still come back to homeboy JC, because, and first of all, I love that people who have been rejected by the church or who have rejected the church are usually still down with Jesus, right? Because, the guy was pretty blameless. He said some really cool and crazy and awesome stuff and challenging stuff. And that's why he's my go-to when we talk about action, because his words still challenge me to push myself in kindness. And this does take some real disciplined practice to not react to a person or situation with the same energy that's causing distress. And now I want to be really clear. I'm talking about distress, not harm, right? Jesus was the first one to step in front of the people about to stone somebody. He was ready to stand up to oppressors and end harm in the moment and call it out in the systems. So these are the two sides of the action coin, I think, in a life of faith. Ending injustice and showing that loving kindness, which is, of course, hardest to do to mean, nasty people. But that's what we hear. When someone gives you a hard time, I love the message sometimes. Respond with the supple moves of prayer. And I realized this maybe for the first time, that, he's not saying go be nice to them. He's saying pray for them. And that can be done at a distance, which I'm always grateful for. Respond with prayer for that person. And then you'll be acting out of your true selves, your God-created selves. And I hear from your soul. You will be living from your soul. If you can receive mean and take a step back and say a prayer for that person instead of responding with the mean right back. And yes, this is our life's work, right? We will be working on this till the day we die, hopefully. We won't give up. That's my hope, is I'll always keep trying. It is a practice. It does take prayer and meditation and grounding and centering and breathing and having a community of support to help us through. It does take asking for help and venting to friends and journaling and screaming and whatever it takes. I think it's okay. We need a community. We need to lean on our circles of support as we do this really hard thing, which is to show kindness to people that don't show it to us, and then to work for justice in a very unjust world. So at Wild Roots, we all got to meet Melina Rudman. And I am really grateful that Ellen actually told me she has mostly daily email you can sign up for. And I've been loving, and she even records it so you can hear her lovely, soothing voice. And if you're interested, I'm happy to share it. But today, It was like this gift from above. You know, she says, this came to me, and she sent it out to her list. It came today. I was like, thank you, Melina. In her email today, she says, the most powerful thing any of us can do is to be for and with. It is fine and good to protest, as I have done, do, and will continue to do. Though the most powerful protest any of us can make against hate is to be love. Against fear is to be courageous and full of grace. Against those who prey upon the vulnerable is to become protectors and witnesses of the vulnerable. It is very easy to say what we are against. Much harder to be what we stand for. To say often only takes one breath. To be takes intention, action, and energy that is sustained and requires resting in there too. To be for life is to give your life in the service of life. To love, to feed, clothe, share, walk beside, listen to, cry with, laugh with. And this was the linchpin for me of what exactly action is all about. And this is what I hear Jesus pushing me to do, to act for love versus acting out against hate. In the face of hate, to say, I love life more, so I'm going to show that to you and model how it could be done, model how we could live with each other. And I know, again, in this work that will take our whole lives, I know we will have many opportunities, probably today or this week, to practice this. And so my hope is, because we connect here on Sundays, because we are walking through life together, that we might take an opportunity that comes to us this week. We don't have to take every one. We will probably mess up many times, but we know that there are people here who we can talk to about it, get advice from, share with. And so I hope we can take the opportunities given to us to respond with love when faced with hate, and to work for justice in an unjust world. There's no way one of us could do it all, but in the path that we're walking, in the little circle of influence we have, we will be given opportunities to meet hate with love. And I hope we can take an opportunity or two this week to show up for and with, rather than just always being against. Let's make it so, together. There is another component of action that helps, that is important, and that is rituals. Rituals are ceremonial, symbolic, often communal actions that engage our bodies. Because humans have known sometimes we need to physically feel something before we really get it logically. I think of Jesus washing the disciples' feet, or our modern Christian rituals, baptism and communion. They're physical acts that we have to move our bodies through. So it's not just our minds, but it's our real whole selves practicing this wild faith. And I think there's also a component of muscle memory to rituals. So this week, Jews around the world are celebrating Rosh Hashanah, which is the new year. And there's a tradition in the multi-day celebration of Rosh Hashanah to throw bread or other small items into a natural body of water, symbolizing the casting away of your sins from the past year, to feel the release and help you know you're starting a new year with a fresh start, a clean slate. And it's often surrounded by prayers for renewal and forgiveness. And I was not surprised to see similarities between this ritual and other traditions, rituals around the equinox. Druids called the equinox light of the water. So tomorrow is the official equinox, which means we will have equal amounts of daylight and darkness. It's the turning point of the year, the halfway point between summer and winter solstices. The Greeks marked the equinox as the time when Persephone descended to the underworld. It's this turning inward time of year. And really, we're not just shifting into fall, but we are stepping into this sacred half of the year where we go inward, this season for dreaming, the creative, inner, emotional time where we can do the inner work and there's less outer work needed. And this season, traditionally, is not about losing the light, but it's about becoming your own light. Bringing your light into the darkness of winter. So we want to honor this time, this turning point in the year by creating balance in some small ways. So consider what areas of life are longing for a bit of balance. And I think about, the two sides of our action coin, the justice work versus the loving kindness work. Maybe that's an area where you can try the other one that you don't do as much. But right now we're going to borrow the concept of the tradition at Rosh Hashanah. I'd invite you to find some small item, a stone, a stick. Find something you can hold in the palm of your hand. Oh, yes. Yeah. And as you hold it, we can look at it, we can give it some attention, honor it for what it's done. And if you would like, you can grasp it, and if it helps to close your eyes, to focus some intention into this gift of creation. As you hold your item, think about what has served you these past few months, this season. What has been good this summer? Thank that goodness. Offer it gratitude. Give thanks to the source for the gifts that have served you. Now consider what is ending with this season. What things are coming to a close? Don't try to hold on to them, but release them, squeeze them into your item that you're holding. And now consider what has not served you the last few months. What has been distressing or difficult? Try to thank those things. Give gratitude for the discomfort, the anger, the tears, the pain, and the foolishness that you've experienced. There's no need to fix or relive. Just thank it for what you learned. And invite it to move on its way. We now have an item in our grasps that represents the gifts, the endings, and the challenges of the last few months. And we now have the opportunity to let them all go. So when you are ready, I invite you to take it to the water and cast it off. And as you walk, you might pray, I honor the light and welcome the dark. May I be steady in the shift. I honor the light and welcome the dark. May I be steady in the shift.
Thanks for listening.
If you want to support Church in the Wild and the work we do striving for environmental and social justice, you can head on over to our website, churchinthewild.org/support, or you can click on the donation page link. There you can make a donation, set yourself up to be a recurring supporter, or you can buy something from our Redbubble shop. We're so glad you're with us on this journey, following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. Until next time.